Okay, a little real talk, ladies and gents. It's time to break up with your razor and start a new lifelong relationship with real hair-free results. It's Dr. Jaime here, and I want to tell you about Milan laser hair removal. This year, fall in love with your skin and say goodbye to the hassles of removing unwanted hair. Laser hair removal is the absolute best way to ditch the stubble with permanent results. That means you can enjoy date nights out or stay in without worrying about daily shaving or booking those time-consuming, costly wax appointments. At Milan Laser Hair Removal, the average client is over 95% hair-free within 7 to 10 sessions. Plus, their exclusive unlimited package is included with every purchase at no extra cost. So your hair-free results are guaranteed for life, and there are no touch-up fees ever. The best part? It's safe and effective. This podcast is all about using my medical expertise to help all of you. So I love that Milan Laser was founded by board-certified physicians, and all of their providers, they're medical professionals. They are the largest laser hair removal company in the United States, with over 160 locations nationwide. And because laser hair removal is their sole focus, you're always in the hands of experts who have the medical oversight to give you the best results possible. Are you ready to fall in love with your smoothest skin yet? Give Milan Laser a call at 833-NO-RAZOR or visit milanlaser.com today. You can use my code FITANDFAB60, that's FITANDFAB60, to get 60% off any body area, excluding full body purchases. That's FITANDFAB60, all one word. Thank you to Milan Laser. Welcome to the Fit and Fabulous podcast with Dr. Jaime Seaman. Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jaime. Welcome back to the Fit and Fabulous podcast. We have an amazing guest on today's episode. I'm super excited for all you YouTubers you're watching. We have an on-site recording today, which is also so great to go into people's environments and kind of see how they live and work and do their thing. So I want to introduce you to today's guest, Jake Alward. Jake, thanks for coming on the Fit and Fabulous podcast.
Appreciate you having me.
Well, where we are right now is Bellevue University. And for those of you that don't know your geography here in Nebraska, it's just south of Omaha, Nebraska. It's an NAIA school. And Jake Alward is the head strength and conditioning coach here at Bellevue University. And what I actually found out right before we started recording is that, how many staff do you have, Jake, here at Bellevue?
I am the only strength and conditioning coach on staff for roughly 270 athletes. So
that's incredible. So Jake is a one-man show. Well, Jake, tell us your story, just your background and how you got here to where we are today.
Yeah, so basically, I was an accountant really before I even got into this. Was working an office job. Just really didn't like my day-to-day kind of lifestyle, and I was always big into working out. I played baseball at Bellevue. And one day I really just told myself, it's like, hey, I want to do exactly what I want to do with my life. I obviously didn't figure it out right away in college, but those couple years, kind of right after, working kind of that office job lifestyle, I was like, hey, it's time to jump into what I want to do. So I left my office job, got certified as a personal trainer, basically went into personal training, got lucky enough to actually help with our baseball team, who I played with. And things started to be a little bit more successful with the team. We got to 2 World Series after like a 10-year drought. And after 4 years of that, our university decided, hey, we need to hire a strength coach. And I got lucky enough to be picked and take over all of our sports. And we have 12 teams. So it's quite a bit of a workload, but
yeah, that's a lot of athletes to be training, especially when you're by yourself. So 273 athletes. Tell us what your day-to-day life is like training that many athletes. I mean, what time do you wake up? What's your schedule like?
Yeah, so it starts pretty early. 4:30, 4 o'clock is usually when that alarm goes off, depending on the day.
Did you guys hear that?
Yeah.
Winners wake up at 4:30.
Oh yeah. Hey, I'm trying to be like The Rock, but no, it's a grind. So every day you got to be prepared. We have an app called Team Builder that all of our athletes use. Basically gives them access to their workouts. So I write up those workouts right away in the morning after I get my breakfast. I usually try to get a little 1 mile run in to start the day to get really the juices flowing, get my mental right.
The morning routine.
Morning
Super
routine.
important.
It's 100%. That morning routine can set the tone for your day. Getting all of those boxes checked makes for a smoother day. Because we start softball usually Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Those are at 6:45 a.m. Women's golf's 6:30 a.m. Tuesdays and Thursdays. And it's just a running schedule year round where I'm up that early, we're getting after it. And you got to bring the energy in the getting that blood flowing in the morning is really big for me. But yeah, it's a full day though. So we have our teams in the morning, a little bit of an hour break or two from 9 a.m. to 11, and then it's right back on the clock, 12 to roughly 5:30. We got multiple sports going through depending on the day.
Wow. Yeah.
It's extreme.
It definitely takes the caliber of athlete to play collegiate athletics. How many of your athletes that come in have come from formal strength and conditioning programs in their high schools? Because I know, in Nebraska, some of the smaller schools, it isn't something that every athlete necessarily has access to.
Yeah, and that's huge. A lot of our athletes are JUCO oriented, so we'll get bounce backs from D1, Division I, Division II, which we're lucky enough they've gone through some sort of strength conditioning program. But some of those high school or smaller JUCO athletes, they'll come in. A lot of our basketball athletes too, like no really foundation of how a strength conditioning program operates. Learning a lot of our culture, movements. It's really big, and it's a learning gap for them. And then those ones that come in that are well versed, it's just jumping right back into it.
Yeah.
It's a big learning curve for, I'd say, like half of our athletes.
Yeah. I want to back up a little bit about your story and kind of talking about you leaving your corporate job to come be a strength and conditioning coach. I found a tweet that Jake had put out, let's see when this was, back in October. So 7 years ago, I left my safe corporate job at lunch and never returned. My boss told me I'll never be successful and said good luck with, quote, personal training, very sarcastically. The key is not to listen to people that don't have your vision. And that's something that totally resonated with me. Tell us more about that mindset. Did you always think that way? Did you feel stuck? How did you get to really pursuing what your passion was?
This was a big moment in my life, honestly. So, when you're not doing exactly what your instincts are telling you, so that instinct, which I'm huge on getting in touch with that inner voice. That inner voice it's number one. And if that inner voice is talking to you daily, it's like, why are we doing this? What am I getting out of this? I just started, talking back with that inner voice. Like, is this really what I want to be doing? And, I didn't leave my job with the best. You should take your 2 weeks notice. Do that. And, my mom always
don't leave at lunchtime.
Yeah, don't leave at lunch and not come back. But hey, in my mind at the time, that felt like exactly what I needed to do. And taking that leap of faith, it's paid off. Amazing things have happened, but that mindset is still to this day the same. Listen to my inner voice. Basically, do what it tells you. Whatever feels right is usually right. That first, thing that comes to your mind is usually right. And once you get in tune with that, which is tough, a lot of people always ask me, I even tell our athletes, hey, how do I get in touch with my inner voice? Like, how do you find that inner voice? It's just a process of, feeling that voice talk and what actually feels good.
Right.
So it's tough.
I think it's easy to kind of get stuck in just the day-to-day mundane. I'm getting a paycheck, I've got benefits, but I think what people really have to ask themselves is, in what situations in life, what experiences, what events were you at that really energize you? And that's what we're all really pursuing at the end of the day. And I think that's so cool that you were brave enough to do that, because I don't think that that's something that a lot of people, would really have the guts to do. I think a lot of people just stay in that little comfort bubble.
Oh yeah. And you'll get a lot of people giving you, hey, why are you doing this? Why are you leaving this safe situation? it's finding that thing that energizes you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I really did find. And, helping, coaching, just giving back to people in any way I can, and just helping them reach their goals is what energizes and feeds me. And it wasn't sitting at a computer and doing Excel, that really, got me going. It was more, I was just a different type of person, and it just took me a little longer to find that out.
When you were younger and, young age, high school age, obviously you went on to play collegiate baseball. Was this always your mentality, or is this something that you've kind of learned through the process?
So really growing up, my dad, he was really big into, hey, let's go train, get, be as well prepped for the sports I'm in, go do speed training. Nessa didn't really get into like lifting till, high school, but it was like speed training, baseball lessons, pitching lessons. I think that basically fed my kind of the coach in me, because I was always around a good mentor coach growing up. And I think I lost touch with that, over a period of time, and getting it back is really when I kind of felt, hey, this is what I want to do. It's what I want to do. So yeah, it was kind of started at an early age for me, and I think I just kind of lost touch with it.
Yeah. Talk to me about your experience playing collegiate baseball.
It's actually I have a crazy story too for our baseball. So I played high school at Midwest, played there 2 years varsity, and then went to Kearney, which doesn't have a baseball team anymore, Division II, Nebraska Kearney. Went there for a year. Didn't really like the small town feel of kind of how it was set up. So, I got homesick and I came back to Omaha, and I had a buddy who played for Bellevue University here, and got a little tryout and got set up with them. But 3 years, I was kind of a relief pitcher and closer for our baseball team. And my junior year, we were ranked like 5th in the country. And my best friend, who I brought to the team, didn't get his release from his Division I, and the paperwork was missing, so we had to forfeit our whole season.
Wow.
Yeah, and it was 2010. It was big time, because we had 7 of those guys play professional off that team, and you think NAIA, there's
right, that you're not
going
to go on.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We had our center fielder got to the Red Sox, AAA, kind of had a good little run of athletes at that time, and yeah, it was crazy. So we lost our season that year. Came back, finished my senior year, and that was really it for my baseball career. But never forget that time.
I think that's one of the interesting things about athletics is that my dad was a former collegiate athlete, played very short stint professionally, and then I was also a collegiate athlete. And I remember listening to an interview when I was younger, and my dad said, athletics are a microcosm for life. And of course, I had to go Google what microcosm was. But basically, there's so many parallels between being on a team, playing a sport, the way you train, the way your schedule, learning about failing, learning about losing, learning about major, F-ups. And being able to bounce back from those things, and just knowing that not, one moment like that really defines you. So that's really awesome. So accounting though, so you went on to get an accounting degree, or?
Well, I had a business degree. That was my kind of focus. And my dad, he worked at a company, and it was in the accounting department. I guess it was called purchasing analyst. So kind of go out and buy, equipment, and then we would resell it. But my sister, she got a business degree, and when I was in college, I was like, if she's doing it, I'll get a business degree. So it wasn't really much thought behind it. So I guess I kind of set myself up, for probably not feeling the greatest in that job setting.
So at what point did you just feel completely unsatisfied?
I say it was really right off the bat, but I tried to tough it out for like 2.5 years, which I feel like a lot of people do if they're in something that's just, you have, the salary of your 401k, you've got a nice home. It's just, I said no. Yeah. It's time for me to do exactly what I want.
So tell us what the road is like to get a job like yours for somebody out there listening who maybe is a young listener that wants to be a strength coach.
Yeah, so it's basically, if you want to become a strength conditioning coach, You have to get your certified strength and conditioning specialist certificate, which is done through the NSCA. It's National Strength and Conditioning Association. That's first and foremost, it's pretty much a requirement at the college level, unless you run like a private practice.
Okay.
And also getting in there, being an intern, getting hours, coaching athletes, because you can get all the certifications, you want, and, make yourself look really good on paper. But if you don't have those coaching hours in and really in, the battlegrounds of helping athletes, understanding, where you need to individualize, where you need to change things up, it's super important. So the internship process or getting hands-on time is huge.
Yeah, it's like one thing to learn the knowledge and another thing to be able to apply it in
Exactly.
real life. Yeah, totally agree. Okay, so let's talk about how your athletes train. I mean, how does one structure a strength and conditioning program at the collegiate level?
Yeah, so each sport, we have a little bit of a variation for each sport. So I try to take them through phases. So our first week, we have our athletes, we'll go through some sort of an assessment process where we'll figure out some injury history. We'll figure out where they're at, like past 3 months, what have you been doing? Kind of some broad questions. And then it is movement prep. So our first, week or two, we're really getting ingraining good movement. So technique is huge. We do some sort of a max testing, just because the athletes like it, but those numbers don't mean anything unless you move very well. So technique is huge. So those first 2 weeks, technique oriented, which is a staple all the way throughout and always. But we just preach the importance of movement technique. And then we'll go through some sort of, a eccentric phase, which is for maybe the non-science, exercise science people, it's just that lowering phase. So say you're going down in a squat. That lowering phase of taking that bar down and going into squat is our eccentric phase. So we'll just slow that down.
Yeah, so lengthening the muscle versus a concentric, which is basically contracting. So it's the up or the down phase. Yeah,
so we put that under, a 6-second lowering phase. And that really helps strengthen in the long run and also ingrains good technique, good movement.
Eccentrics are really hard.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, somebody was, have you ever heard of Discover Strength?
I haven't. No.
Okay, so it's this program, it's literally all isometric and like eccentrics. And she said, I'm gonna give you a free workout. You're just gonna go on this Zoom. I know Kristen's gonna listen to this. And there's a trainer. I mean, it's a live person on the other side. And it's basically like, okay, get into a split, lunge position. And it is like pulses over and over and over until you wanna die.
That sounds brutal.
So do you find that kids come in here with really bad techniques sometimes?
Yeah, I've had numerous athletes that have never worked out before in their life, which you'd think you're a college athlete, you've never lifted weights, you've never, done.
Just a natural athlete.
Just a natural athlete, and they've gotten away with it. But once you get to that college setting, or even if you want to move on, getting into a strength conditioning program is huge for just maintaining the longevity. But we'll have those, those athletes that come in and don't even know what a lunge looks like, and they don't know what a Turkish get up is, like just a lot of those fancy exercises. It's totally new to them. But yeah.
At what age do you think athletes should start looking at participating in a strength and conditioning program?
I would say around 8 or 9. Like there's good data out there. You can really get them into moving right away, when they're really young. Kids are carrying around 40-pound book bags, in their 7th, 8th grade, even 5th grade. They're being loaded up, whether they know it or not. So teaching kids how to properly move under load, I really think you can start that at an early age.
Yeah, I have 3 daughters. They're 6, 8, and 10, and it's interesting to me to watch all 3 of them. Like one of them has definitely more just natural, like she just moves very naturally, kind of has this athletic, style to her. Whereas another kid she just looks awkward. I'm like, how do you not know how to run? Like just run. Yeah. But we started to put our girls into programs. It's not a lot of weights, but just learning how to like jump and how to cut and how to, I'm obviously a huge advocate of strength and conditioning, but I know that that's not something that everybody's family is into. But I think it's something you can do as a family. You can, find local gyms that have programs for younger athletes. But one of the things, of course, people are probably fearful of is injuries, right? We see these huge dumbbells over here. It's really like intimidating. So talk to me about how people can reduce their risk of injury by actually doing strength and conditioning.
Yeah, so it comes down to a lot of things. Your technique is huge. Getting with someone that knows how to teach good technique, understanding deceleration, so that eccentric, like being in control of the movements, especially if you're a running athlete, an athlete that plays soccer or basketball, learning how to decelerate. That's really big. And a lot of knee valgus, which is when that knee kind of drives in, when kids land, their knees will buckle in. Getting them strong to where we can strengthen those abductors to help those knees stay on a good.
And female athletes in particular.
Yeah, those numbers are huge.
ACL injuries. Yeah.
So especially in our women's soccer, trying to narrow down that risk. And knee valgus, watching for that, and here is huge. So really making sure we're really strong on one leg. We do our squats and deadlift, but single leg strength is really a big staple of what we do. And having that single leg strength just really helps in so many movements out on the field. And if you think about it, you're going to be on one leg a lot of the time, almost 90% of the time. So it's running, jumping off one foot, it's going to cut off one foot. Being strong without one leg is also going to help kind of limit injury risk, because you can't prevent injuries. You can try your best, but they are going to happen. It's just to minimize that risk. Right.
Yeah, female athletes in particular are at an increased risk for sports injuries, not only because physically the shape of the pelvis is different forces on things like the knees for female athletes, that are doing a lot of cutting, like a soccer player is probably one of the highest risks for ACL injuries. Shoulder injuries, but also because estrogen, one of the hormones that is more predominant in women compared to men, can change the ligament laxity and things like that too. So female athletes definitely should participate in strength and conditioning for those exact reasons to try to help prevent those injuries. Okay, so you were talking about single leg. One of my favorite exercises is the Bulgarian split squat, which Jake told me is also his favorite too. What's your favorite lift here in the gym?
My favorite lift actually would be just a full clean.
Okay.
So the Olympic movements I like a lot. That, and then I would say reverse lunge is my second.
All right.
So that's a single leg. Rear foot or Bulgarian is probably like 10th. So she's rare for even thinking that way. So
I like a little pain. One
Yeah.
thing I'm really bad at though is pull-ups, and that's something that over the past 2 years I think people should go after their weaknesses, because we all have like our favorite, right? The guys that want to do bicep curls, they want the big biceps, but you can't abuse certain areas of your body, and pull-ups are just something that is not natural for me. I think women in particular probably struggle more than that with men. How can I strengthen my pull-ups?
Yeah, so this is a good question. Back to that eccentric, so that lengthening of that muscle. There's a couple exercises I would say. So if you want to increase your pull-ups or even get one pull-up, or be on the road to accomplishing that, doing an eccentric, you're just lowering yourself down 6 to 8 seconds. I would say like a 4 set of 5. Don't even worry about the pull-up part, because you're not going to be able to get up there, or if it's even minimal reps. Get up to that top of the bar, use a box, get that bar basically to chest height, work on controlling and decelerating and making sure your pelvis is locked together too. So you want to have that good pelvis rib cage connection so you can keep your core in a good spot. And then also doing isometric holds at the top. You can always go pronated or supinated grip. So I would say holds at the top, and that eccentric lowering phase. And then really you can do different levels of holds, so a little bit lower, just try to maintain as much time under tension as you can. And you'll see a big increase in that strength. And also too, a little bit of kind of on the side of pull-ups is, working on plyometrics, working on moving your body and being efficient with your body weight. So if you can be efficient with your body weight, it's going to be easier to move. That way you're not only focused on pull-ups, you can work on, your total body strength.
Yeah.
So it's huge.
Yeah.
which is a tough lift.
I'm strong, but I am not light as a feather. So it's a lot of weight to pull up over the bar. But before Titan Games, I got to 6 pull-ups. So, but my goal is 10. Like, I mean, I started with just being able to do 1, but I'm kind of like, I'm hitting that plateau where it's hard. It's a hard movement. Talk to me about nutrition. Is that something that you work with your athletes on?
Yeah, so actually with our athletes, we give them a kind of a full like diet recommendation. Because in the state of Nebraska, you're not supposed to give like a detailed like plan per se unless you're a registered dietitian.
Doctors aren't either.
Yeah, so that's crazy.
This is like completely crazy.
Yeah.
I have a background in nutrition, but it's obviously doctors don't get a lot of nutrition training, so I understand why. But if you look at any disease process, the number one intervention is nutrition.
Yeah.
It's so odd to me.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. So you have to kind of be careful on how you give out some of that information. So we'll basically give them, like, here's a recommended calorie range for your sport, your activity level, and here's the percentages of macros to fit within that. And it's, hey, try this out. Here's an app to track. So we use like MyPlate calorie counter. So we try to give them all the tools they can use, and there's no guesswork. So, and that's huge, especially a lot of our athletes will be in here working their butt off, and they don't realize they're lacking in the kitchen. And, you know, hey, I'm not gaining.
I was just about to say, what percentage of the athletes do you think are following it? I mean, I was a college kid once.
Honestly, I would say 10%. Like, I'm just being real. Like, it's hard for our athletes to go home and just forget about, you know, their friends and, you know, their social media and be like, hey, I need to track my calories. And it's like a 15-minute process. But hey, it's tough. Like, it's just hard to do day to day.
The kids that really dial in their nutrition, though, can you tell a difference in the gym, on the field?
100%. Actually, one of my best examples is Tommy Hansen. He'll probably be listening to this. He followed our diet plan to a T, our strength program to a T, and he's gotten great results. He actually went down to Texas Christian University and interned for their baseball strength staff. So he just was a nerd about it and had great results. But I always see those athletes that are taking that like extra step. You can see a difference. The way they feel, the way they bounce around in here. The athletes that come in, you know, they're a little, you can just tell stress has gotten to them a little bit.
Right. Less resiliency. Don't recover as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that I undervalued as a young athlete. And then I went to college. Our university was larger than Bellevue, and so we had a registered dietitian. But literally what they told us was eat the rainbow. And I mean, that was the advice we got, was like fruits and vegetables. And as a kid, most kids aren't great at eating those types of things anyway, but I didn't realize the importance of protein even at that time. I mean, they would always serve us a serving of protein at the training table every night and whatnot. And then there was one summer where, shout out to James, our dietitian, told us that the softball team was the fattest team on campus and that we had to try to cut body fat. And so that they gave us this piece of paper, and it was literally on it, like you could count out 25 goldfish crackers. So it was seriously just like hit these calories because they knew we would lose weight at a certain calorie threshold. And so there's so many unhealthy ways to do it. And I just wish that if I had any advice for somebody listening, it's prioritize protein for athletes, eat for nutrients. I mean, literally, when you talk about like a 1-hour workout coming in here in this gym, the mineral loss, the electrolyte loss, like alone, there are so many things that need replenished when you're training at this type of level. Oh yeah,
100%. And I think we've had a couple athletes try, around 600 to 800 calories we burn in this hour coming in here. So you're losing and burning quite a bit of energy, and the intensity with the atmosphere with all of our athletes in here, you're stepping it up a notch without even realizing it. And you're not taking that extra step, like understanding, you know, hey, that protein is super important. Because I'll get athletes, hey, they'll send me a picture of, you know, their diet for the day that they've counted. It's like, hey, your protein is so low. Like, we need to boost that up. So it's just understanding the importance of protein. It's huge.
Yeah, the protein turnover in these athletes is like,
oh yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned, you know, you love Olympic weightlifting. There's so many different ways to train. Like people out there, there's like boxing gyms and Pilates and CrossFit and so many, you know, different ways to train. do people just find what they like? As an athlete, is there a specific way that's going to be more advantageous?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'll go to our baseball, softball athletes. So we will do some Olympic.
The greatest sports ever, by the way, baseball and softball.
Soccer and basketball are going to kill me in volleyball. But,
we love you too.
Yeah, those are awesome. But yeah, I give them options. So we'll do like our day set up kind of like a Husker Power, which is kind of a methodology I got from Boyd Epley. It's strength, power, strength, power. Like that's our 4-day plan. On our power days, that's when we kind of incorporate some of those Olympic movements. But as you know, softball, baseball, we have to protect the shoulder, we have to protect the forearm. So if their technique from day one is very shoddy, to say the least, we'll throw them on a loaded jump. So we can still get some of the benefits of an Olympic lift with, say, a trap bar jump, quarter squat jump, any loaded jump where we're still producing, power off the ground and getting good hip extension. So the athletes I do let Olympic lift and clean, if they can do it, well, obviously if they look like they're close, I'll teach them and we'll get to a really good spot. But definitely Olympic lifts, if our athletes can do them and nail it and keep that good technique and understanding, hey, we got to get to these certain positions, we do it. But if, like I said, if they're struggling in that area, we always have something that builds off of it.
Yeah.
That's not, yeah.
So one thing that's really taken off in the last, 10 years is CrossFit. And obviously, if you want to go to the CrossFit Games, be a CrossFit athlete, there were some really young kids that participated in CrossFit Games this last year. I can't remember the youngest gal, what her age was. 16 years old or something like that. There's even younger ones. But is something like CrossFit applicable to strength and conditioning for sports, or is it something that's really just unique to CrossFit athletes?
So I am pretty passionate about CrossFit not being on the sports training side. But that saying, if you're not training at all,
something's better than nothing. Yeah.
So there is a place for it if you don't have access to a good strength coach. But it's really important, those movements like burpees, just a lot of time, time oriented, go as fast as you can. Those can just really take a wear and tear on the body if you're not doing it programming wise properly. So as far as CrossFit, I would say no, honestly, and that's my 100% opinion. And I think that there's so much out there on good movement, in the strength conditioning side that has yielded great results. Like you go to Alabama football, are they doing CrossFit? No, they're not. They're actually doing a good, solid strength conditioning program with good movements like lunging, squat, deadlift, like push, pull, carry. Those do all of those well, and you're going to make a pretty good, well-rounded athlete. So CrossFit, in my mind, it's controversial. A lot of people, think it's really bad. And a lot of people out there use it probably for some of their sports, like in high school level. But in my experience, I just don't think it's the best option for athletes.
Yeah, I mean, I think where CrossFit shines is that for somebody that, wants a more intense workout and that just the camaraderie with some of these CrossFit gyms, I think that's where CrossFit has really grown so fast because of that. And I think that kind of resonates with how we felt as athletes, right? You love just being with your teammates and, sweating together and grinding together and just having that kind of experience together. So, but I agree. When you look at the literature, the scientific literature on, because we base this, strength and conditioning isn't just some willy-nilly, like pick some exercises. Yeah, it's all based on exercise science and physiology. And when we look at the data on CrossFit, the injury rate is super high. For women, the pelvic floor dysfunction rate is super high because of the intensity that they train at. So something to really consider.
Yeah, and especially thinking when you're going to do a bunch of burpees and say you're not the most body efficient, maybe you're a little overweight, some of those positions break down pretty fast. So going back to, hey, let's have good technique, good movement. Jumping into a CrossFit program as your first, hey, I'm going to get back into working out is probably not the best, but that atmosphere that they get is great. Being with a whole group, I can see why it's popular, 100%. And I obviously watch the CrossFit Games. I'm actually CrossFit certified, So like it definitely has a place. I enjoy some of the workouts, but yeah, you take that to a collegiate weight room, high school weight room. There's so many better things that you can do for your athletes.
Yeah, good advice. You mentioned that you run a mile every morning. Talk to me about cardio. Like, do these type of athletes need cardio, or are they just focusing on resistance training?
Yeah, so personally, I love my mile runs every morning, but would I give a mile run to our athletes? No, not necessarily. So our strength power athletes, cardio is last on our list. So softball, baseball, it is sprints, those explosive movements. We want to live in that, phosphate, glycolytic energy system, which they live in. So you think softball, baseball, a lot of stuff happens 10 seconds or less. So you throw them into a cardio program where you're doing a lot of running, you're going to take away from some of those power outputs. Now, when we talk about soccer, basketball, we have really good communication with our coaches. So our basketball, soccer coaches, I know what they're doing at practice. They're doing a lot of running, extensive up and down, a lot of sprint work. So I give them what they're not getting. So they're still doing those strength, power movements in here. And we're working on, groin health for soccer. But if I know a team's not getting that cardio aspect and they need it, we'll throw that in. So maybe we're in an off season to where they're not with their coaches much. We'll throw in some interval type training or a little bit more of a long distance feel. So like even our cross country, they'll come in here after running, 5 miles for a normal workout for their day. Are we going to go and run 5 more miles for the training? Right. Yeah. So we're going to focus on that, the strength aspect.
Yeah. So understanding how to train and how to recover, which I think is something I never thought of either as a young athlete. Yeah. Do you talk to athletes about recovery? What other modalities do they use? Yeah. So really, as far as like stretching, recovery, the food, we definitely go back to that nutrition. And sleep is huge. A lot of our athletes do not get enough sleep. They'll even say like, oh, I got 6 hours, 7 hours. I'm like, it's still like on the low end. Yeah.
That's 6 to even 10 hours. I know it's crazy in like a college athlete, but if you can get, that range of sleep, that's going to help you recover. It's the best supplement out there. Sleep, like if they could prescribe that, put it in a bottle and, hey, this is 10 hours of sleep, that would be the best supplement out there. And really when our athletes come in sore, maybe we had a tough day, we'll do more of a mobility emphasis. So just getting moving, getting the blood flow, that's huge. And just working through ranges of motion, different planes of movement, that really helps kind of boost that recovery. Yeah. It's like active recovery. I always call it like the better than nothing workout. Which I hate stretching. How important is stretching and flexibility? I love this question because I stretch very little, and I can put my hands on the ground. I mean, my flexibility is great. So I wouldn't say never, but as much as you'd think, someone into fitness, like, hey, they probably stretch every day. It's weekly. It's really, if I feel tight or I feel, I'm losing a little mobility, I'll do mobility. And, just taking your exercises through full range of motion is really a very good active lengthening of that muscle. So you're talking like zero resistance, like movements, or you're talking, should people foam roll? Should they just like static stretch? Like what's the... So it's in terms of static stretching, I'd say for the athlete, if it feels good for you, go for it. We'll do some sort of static stretching as our cool down some days, but we don't take it really more than 30 seconds to a minute. Because there's data out there that shows like long bouts of static stretching actually decreases power output. Right. Which is crazy for someone who has never heard that before. It's like, hey, if you go and stretch your hamstrings for 2 minutes straight and then go try to sprint, you're actually losing a little bit of power output there. Which is funny because you see people just like stretching at the blocks and it's like, just let your body do its thing. Getting your central nervous system up is really, something that can really help. Getting that feel good feeling. But static stretching, like I would say we use about 10% of really what we do. And we don't really have athletes, coming up like, hey, do you have any stretches like I can do? So you're not getting that
Nobody
feedback.
Likes to stretch.
Yeah, no one's giving that feedback. So it's, you're doing something right if you're not having, masses of athletes.
What
coming
about
up
like
to
heat
aesthetic
or
training.
ice or something like that?
So I'm very, I don't know if it's controversial or not, but ice, I'm not a big fan of ice. I think it slows the recovery process. I think there is data out there that shows that's
Well, it definitely
slowing it.
blunts the it blunts the growth stimulus. So if your goal is to like grow big muscles, get jacked, get huge, ice after like a cold shower or ice bath or things like that will actually hurt the stimulus, is my understanding.
And as far as being an athletic trainer and all that, I think like ice would be good in like an acute setting. Hey, you sprain your ankle, let's put some ice to basically limit swelling. But it's something I want to do more research in. I don't really handle ice and heat too much for our athletic training staff.
Sure.
But
are you in the same department as them? Like, is it?
We are separate departments, but we work very close together.
Yeah.
So athlete gets injured, they'll go through the rehab process with our athletic trainer. Then they'll send them to me. We have weekly meetings on injuries that have happened. And Mike Livergood, who's our athletic trainer, we do a really good job of communicating and just getting set up from injury, rehab to getting them ready to go back on the field. Is a process that it's really important.
Yeah.
And really a lot of those athletes that you see out in day to day, they'll go get injured out on the field. Say it's a high school athlete, go to the athletic trainer, but there's no high school strength conditioning coach to take them through like an onboarding process to get ready and prepped to play. So it's going from almost rehab out to competition, which in my mind is scary for a lot of those athletes that aren't going through a good strength conditioning program or resistance training. So it's something I hope in the long run a lot of high schools start seeing the importance of having and hiring a strength conditioning coach.
Yeah. I mean, they got rid of PE, so we can see where their priorities lie.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is small schools and budgets. We were just talking right before this podcast. There was, I don't know who gave the quote from Bellevue University, but somebody said, "I would rather have $1 million results in a $1,000 gym than the opposite." Which you don't need to be fancy. Yeah, I've seen some high school gyms that are very rudimentary, and you just need heavy things and a little bit of coaching.
Yeah, squat, hinge, carry, push, pull. If you can do all of those in the setting you're in, you're going to be able to, take care of your body pretty well. It doesn't have to be all fancy and shiny.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's interesting about the space that you work in is it's really only about just over 50 years old, like your field.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it was the 1970s when a few universities, Boyd Epley, Nebraska, really started creating this idea of a formal strength and conditioning program. And so really, all in all, it's not that old. And, for the regular person out there listening, it's funny, hundreds of years ago, you didn't see gyms and treadmills and, obviously a lot of our lifestyle choices have pushed a lot of people into health and fitness and things like that. But
Boyd Epley, if he wasn't around, I wouldn't have a job right now. He basically was the father of strength conditioning, and he was Nebraska. I think Tom Osborne, Bob Devaney, they got him on staff.
Yeah, so he came in when my dad was at Nebraska.
Yeah.
And then funny full circle story about life, because that's the cool part of it, is his daughter Jenna and I played basketball together growing up.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and he's actually been up to our weight room, Boyd Epley. He's kind of looked at our our setup, and we've consulted a little bit. So it's cool to have that older voice. And we use a lot of those old Husker power principles, and like they still reign true today. So he's
if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, exactly. He's been amazing.
It works. Can you talk about the exciting things happening at Bellevue for strength and conditioning?
Yeah, so really, I mean, I would say it's more on the results end, like how our teams are doing. So strength conditioning wise, I feel like since we've really gotten going, we've made history in volleyball. Our volleyball team finished in the top 8, which was either the first time in history or the second. Don't quote me, but we're breaking down milestones there, and they hadn't been really to where they got to since the year 2000. So they're getting good results. Baseball, we're on a really good run of making that NAIA World Series, which we had a 10-year drought really before we started doing training and getting the guys ready. And I would say our men's soccer team's really taken a big boost. They finished, I think, in the top 10 this year. We did have a tough loss though, but they were top 10 a couple times this year. So it's been exciting seeing kind of those results kind of take place.
It's fun to watch your athletes succeed. And you guys are getting a new strength and conditioning place?
It's in the works,
yeah?
yes.
Donate your money to Bellevue University.
Yeah. We have a blueprint. Now exactly, when they're going to break ground, we're not sure yet, but we've seen the blueprint. We should have a nice, beautiful weight room and new basketball arena coming here, hopefully within the next 5 years. So there's some good, exciting things coming. So it's pretty exciting.
That's cool. That's cool. Okay, to baseball and softball for just a minute. Do you think you could hit one of your pitchers, the softball pitchers? Do you think you could hit one of their balls?
I want to go out to practice now and put this into place, but I would say no.
We're going to get this on video, Matt.
I would say no. I'm going to be real. I'd say LJ, she's like one of our best pitchers. She'd strike me out.
Yeah, I think people think softball is just like the girls' version of baseball, and they're completely different sports. The bases are closer, the pitcher's mounds are closer, the reaction time is much quicker. It's like 0.35 to 0.44 seconds versus baseball, which is like 0.45 to 0.55. I remember a number of years ago, they brought in some of the MLB guys and on one of the sports centers and tried to get them to hit off Jenny Finch. And
I think
they couldn't touch a ball. So yeah, shout out to all the softball players from Bellevue.
And I back that too. Softball's tough.
They're good athletes. They are tough people.
They're strong. Our softball team in here, they're gritty. They'll scare you in terms of how hard they work, and they're 1-2, so it's exciting.
Absolutely. Awesome. It's a great sport. Okay, so I end all of my podcasts with something called the semen analysis, which you can only do if you get the pleasure of having a last name like Seaman. But I pulled this study looking at performance-enhancing drug use in adolescents. In NAIA, do they do drug testing?
They do. Basically, when you make the national tournament, I believe that's when they will do a random test.
Okay.
But during the school year, I believe that we don't. I think we had it in place, but I think it's more when you get to that national stage.
Yeah.
So postseason, they'll spring some drug tests on you.
Yeah.
So.
I had to do my fair share of drug testing for NCAA, but I know that it's different based on different organizations. But it's interesting. The study that I pulled, they did this study called the Partnership Attitude and Tracking Study, the PAT study, and this was back in 2013. But they found 11% of teens reported using synthetic human growth hormone within their lifetime. Steroid use was 5 to 7%, which I was kind of mind blown. I thought that was actually
mind blowing to me.
I thought that was really high. Yeah, and this was in 2013, which I feel like with time, the availability, social media, the pressure for athletes to be better, bigger, faster, stronger, kind of blew my mind. But the interesting part of this too was they not only looked at steroids and growth hormone, but they looked at stimulants. And as a physician, we are seeing increasing numbers of adolescents and teens on things like Adderall, Vyvanse, these amphetamine type substances, which do increase alertness. They improve endurance, they improve anaerobic performance, reaction time, and the non-medical use of them is growing, but these athletes are in medical school, even in like grad school, medical school, people are pursuing these prescriptions because it's a performance-enhancing drug in the classroom too.
It's a study drug.
Right. So these are things you don't think about for these athletes, but these are what we're dealing with, day in and day out. And so I just want people to be aware of your young athletes that, they can get access to these things. What do you think about this whole name, image, likeness that has come about in college athletics?
So I actually really like it. I think it changes the landscape, which is change for a lot of people is scary. But I believe, especially those athletes at those high levels, they're putting in so much work behind the scenes. Many people are making an income off their play. I just think it's great that they can get some sort of compensation for really, they're almost at a pro level if you really think of those top levels like college football, college basketball. I just think it gives them a really good opportunity to let's say this, you're best window of being an athlete was in college, and you were a superstar, but it didn't pan out in the pros, and you didn't say like Tommy Frazier for Nebraska back in the day.
Yeah.
So it gives you a chance why your name is basically hot per se to make an income on that time.
Yeah.
So when you leave and say you don't become a pro superstar athlete, at least you could have taken advantage of a time that when your name was popular and people were willing to dish out money.
Yeah.
And you're able to compensate off that.
I think that's one of my fears, is that with like your big power schools, that it's going to start to come down to how deep are people's pockets, how much money are we going to be to pay these athletes to come in and put our jersey on, and that's of course my fear, is there's
some good
there's
and bad.
Always pros and cons
There's gonna be
to
some
everything.
bad,
Yeah. And I think you wonder too, could it be a distraction? Is it going to create problems in the locker room? Those are a lot of my fears.
Those are kind of uncharted territories, so it's going to be interesting to see some of those ramifications of because it's going to get a little more detailed. There's Texas, their offensive line is getting a $60,000 salary to be on the starting O-line at the University of Texas. So it's going to come down.
Hear that.
Yeah. So recruiting has been changing. It's almost like you're going to have to offer some sort of a package, with boosters. Says, hey, here's your salary. Here's, what you're going to get if you come to our school. So, yeah, the ramifications and what's going to happen after this all takes place is going to be very interesting. But I think it is good. Just for those athletes, to take advantage of, being popular at that time. But hopefully it doesn't change. There's no bad ramifications that
when you have coaches making millions of dollars off the backs of some of these young athletes, it makes sense that they should be able to represent themselves. And we'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell. Well, Jake, tell people how they can find you on social media, and I just want to say good luck to the Bruins and all the athletic teams this year and all the athletes you work with.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And basically, to find me on Instagram, it's at Coach Alward. I actually put all of our athletes' workouts. You can see, what we're doing day to day with all of our athletes. So it's a good recruiting tool. So a lot of athletes that, are interested in Bellevue University, you can see how our atmosphere in the weight room is, how each sport operates. And you get to see me working out once in a while, but that's not exciting.
I love it.
And then Twitter, I think it's at Coach Alward as well. But yeah, you can find me and, learn more about Bellevue University Strength and Conditioning.
Awesome. Well, Jake, thanks for having me here in the gym today. I'm going to go home and do some pull-ups. So
let's go.
Thank you guys for listening. Make sure you download this episode. Leave us all your comments, your questions. Share it with people who might find this interesting. We really appreciate you all.